Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I've run Flux nodes before and I've even done a little GPU mining. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be actually talking to somebody from the team. So I'd like to welcome Alex to the channel. And Alex, the CryptoJar channel has a lot of users that are new to cryptocurrency. They may or may not heard of Flux. And a lot of these users are just getting their feet wet with crypto, whether they're starting up their own node for their first time or getting into GPU mining. So maybe we can just start off with who you are and how long you've been with Flux.
So how long I've been at Flux currently? I think it's been almost 2 years that I've joined the Flux community. Being part of the team has been more like a year and a half so far. What I do within Flux is basically everything that's related to proof of use work. I basically approach the team with the idea of how we would implement the whole thing. And since then, I'm leading the whole, with Jeff Key and of course other members, the whole proof of use work creation.
Okay, and that's what my next question is actually going to be. A lot of users know what proof of work is, but they're not really sure about what proof of useful work is. So what is proof of useful work? And is proof of work not useful enough for Flux?
I wouldn't say proof of work isn't good enough. I'd say more like there's better ways into investing energy, resources, and also all this computational power, as we can see with the growth of AI and such. I've been myself teaching at university, doing research for the past 5 years. And I bought two 2080s Ti's, right, for AI purposes. And I found myself most of the time not using them. And that's where it all came and made sense to me. Everything is just about being efficient nowadays. But with these resources you invest in, basically these hardware you invest in, they most of the time just are dormant. The way I approach proof of use work is basically how can we take advantage of these dormant resources, whether it's someone who has a gaming PC at home who's not gaming 24/7 because obviously you need to sleep, or research academics, institutions and stuff like that. You have to get these resources always at 100 uptime, if possible, to basically make sense of the investment. I think you're be more able to relate with the car analogy that I use often.
Okay.
Is why do you invest in the car? Because it's useful to you at some point in the day, but 95% of the time it's just going to stay on your parking lot and not doing anything. How could you make better use of that investment that you make? Well, you can either rent it out or do carpools when you're using it. So basically it's about maximizing efficiency and the way we use resources.
Right.
So it's also a step further into a more sustainable and industrial growth, the way we would use resources, basically.
Okay, so speaking of that, what is the hardware requirements for proof of useful work? Like if someone's already mining, are they able to continue using their hardware in terms of CPU, GPU, and RAM?
So when it comes to hardware, there's no requirement per se for the GPUs. It's just about the quality of service you're going to provide. So basically, you come as a service provider at this point. You're not as a miner really anymore. Mm-hmm. You're more providing a service which is either AI, gaming, or rendering. So in terms of requirements, the only requirement there is having virtualization on your motherboard and CPU. So you can basically pass through the GPU to the pods.
Okay. So is it sort of like creating a virtual environment, something that like VMware or VirtualBox would do?
To put it simply, yes.
Okay.
But in a way more efficient way.
Right.
And you could also like cluster up multiple machines and spread out the workload and so on.
Okay, so a lot of what I do is set up nodes. So is there any changes coming up for node operators?
For nodes, everything stays the same so far.
So the minimum requirements and everything else for running the node remains exactly the same?
Yep.
Okay.
Until further announcements, yes.
Okay. All right. So what sectors would benefit from the Flux network?
So definitely from the middle I come from, which is the academic institutions. I work at the University of Applied Science in Geneva.
Okay.
And for that, for sure, and all the other sectors, which uses computational power, which is either image rendering, video rendering, such as content creators. Sometimes it can take a lot of time to render a 4K video, for example. That's why not a lot of people go to that. Also AI, weather forecasting, medical analysis, and obviously language models just such as ChatGPT and so on.
Oh, okay, all right. So how does Flux achieve its goal of decentralizing computational power?
So basically, everyone can be a service provider at this point. We'll have different ways to approach it, let's say. So we'll explain this further down as we roll things out. But anyone can basically join, have their rigs, machine, either Windows or Linux, and provide their services. So if you're a gamer, you have already a Windows OS installed, you basically put it on your Windows machine, and then everything gets shared when you are not using it. Same goes for larger servers. We have a few Teslas at my university, and you could also run it on an existing system as well. So basically anyone that wants to join.
What advantages does running nodes on Flux offer projects compared to using traditional services like AWS or Azure?
Node specifically is mostly reliability. We always ensure at least 3 instances when you deploy a node or an application on our network. And as you further look into the pricing as well, you can see drastic differences. I wrote a paper about this. It's not officially released yet, but it'll soon be about how these costs can come into play of existing hardware, basically how you can make better use of existing hardware and basically contribute to a more sustainable environment by reusing these hardware that are already up and running. You don't need to front pay these costs for us, and it's basically a peer-to-peer transaction system. Not sure if that makes sense to you, but
yeah, that does. So maybe I can link that in the description later on when you release it publicly.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples for practical applications for the decentralized Flux network?
So as I mentioned earlier, for the different application, it basically goes through every type of use case you can think of which uses computational power, so GPUs, for say, such as rendering, video editing, or even all the subcategories of AI, which goes through different fields of application, goes from weather forecasting, language models, even gaming. I did post a Twitter link with Jeff Key playing on my computer from Canada onto my computer doing the rendering on a game on my own machine. And he was playing on an old iPad from 2000 and something.
So it's running off of your computer, and then it's actually
the rendering and the game. Yep, exactly. Wow. The rendering and the game is on my current computer, and he's playing onto a web browser from his iPad.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. That shows you the strength and the power of the Flux network and its actual capabilities. Okay, so that's still the questions I had right now. Just a little bit of an introduction to a lot of the users. So I want to thank you for your time and joining me on the channel. So that's my chat with Alex, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some useful information from there. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the comments below and share this with anyone else that's interested in the Flux network. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.